FM dial. So you can share live with your friends, neighbors, just inform them. Now the workers' voice is on. You're continuing with the discussion to ensure that Dominic can move in the right direction, and that's what we always do here. But before we start, we always reach out and touch some families. We have lost loved ones along the way. We just want to reach you and just, extend sincerest condolences to you and your families who have lost loved one. We start off with Mr. Trevor Anthony of Salisbury, who have passed on. We just want to extend sympathies to Magenia, Mr. Wilders, Ashley, and the others in England. Just want to reach out Cleo and the others somewhere in Anguilla. Sympathies to you on the passing of Trevor. Also in Collihill, not in Collihill directly, but in the States. Just want to reach out and touch Jerry Green and family and the others in Collihill. Jerry Green in Bronx, New York, on the passing of his brother Eden. Just want to say good evening to you. Also, Saturday, this Saturday, 29th of July, will be the funeral of Uella Elizabeth Joseph of Vacres, for the wife of Mr. Maynard Joseph, former Minister of Agriculture and former candidate of the United Workers' Party. Just want to extend sympathies to him. So the burial is on Saturday. Also, the family of Mr. Walter Alexander Williams of North End of Marigot. I knew the gentleman very well. I think he have children with two ladies in Salisbury. He was married to two of his wives who from Salisbury. Interestingly, so he was want to reach out to the all the family in Salisbury, the Louis and others in Salisbury that on the passing of Mr. Walter Williams of North End. Also in Collihill, from Collihill, living on the Grand Savannah in Salisbury, Mr. Francis Langley. Just want to extend sympathies to his family. He was living in Salisbury in the Grand Savannah. And also the family of Mr. Peter Joseph of North End Marigot. Mr. Peter Joseph, I knew him very well. I think he worked DCP, but he worked with me on the port, operating some of the cranes and the others on the port. So I remember him very well. Just want to extend sympathies to his family. And to those of you who we have lost loved ones along the way, just want to reach out to you. Just extend sympathies. Those of you who had birthdays during the week, just want to wish you a happy birthday and all the very best. Coming from the leadership of our party, our political leader, Dr. Thompson Fountain, our deputy political leader, Mr. Clement Masler, our president, Mr. Lennox Linton, deputy president, Mrs. Francisca Joseph, and every other member of the United Workers' Party. Just want to reach out and touch your family this evening. In studios with me for he changing hat from sports rap to the Workers' Voice is Dr. Thompson Fountain. He's back on island. He's with us this for the entire 2 hours. We're gonna touch the budget and touch on other issues that came up. And Dr. Fountain, let us welcome you once again officially to the Workers' Voice. And Dr. Fountain, let me just put on your mic and welcome you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, very good evening.
You're there?
Yes.
Nice. I'm happy to have you there right now.
Yes, Pax, it's good to be back. It's good to be with you tonight as well. And it's certainly my pleasure to be back on the Workers' Voice and then to say very good evening to all of our many listeners all over Dominica, the many supporters of the United Workers' Party, as well as others who are just interested in knowing what we are all about. And it's a great opportunity for us. Tonight, of course, Bags, we'll be talking about the budget. We'll be going behind the numbers. And I have a lot to say about this budget. It's very, very interesting, a budget delivered by a medical doctor. And it reads like that, no doubt. But we have a lot to discuss, and then also the emerging issues. We found out today that there was a very important meeting that the EU held with our own government and the governments of St. Kitts and Nevis and so on, and they put 5 important measures, six important measures.
Yes,
but the one that stands out for me, beyond the interviews and the due diligence, the one that stands out for me is the
Number 5.
instruction that they return the money. That is just Dominica. As far as I know, there is not that issue in St. Kitts and Nevis. There is not that issue in St. Lucia. There is not that issue in Antigua
And Grenada.
and Grenada. The issue of money staying outside is only Dominica. So that is affirmation of what we have been saying.
Let me just quote for you, Dr. Fountain, because I wanted us to touch that before we go into
the
the
budget,
into the budget, and I will quote that they gave us the EU, and it was 6 stringent guidelines. I think that is what they proposed, and if they propose that, that is what they would like the government to implement ASAP.
And they're saying that they have to do it if they want to continue
with the
CBI program.
And you know, I think some time earlier that the US also gave 6 guidelines
exactly,
as well.
Exactly.
And
very similar.
Yes, very similar. And just recently, the UK imposed visa restrictions. You know, so we have a lot of challenges. Why? And most of them come up with the due diligence at the top. But he made a very important point, and it's guideline number 5, and it said investment must reach host country. The country offering CBI programs must properly monitor the flow of funds and verify it against stringent money laundering processes. This will include the provision that the investment funds must be directly transferred to the host country under any situation and must not be diverted into accounts in any other country. Dr. Fontaine, you raised a very important point.
This is for Dominica.
And this is for Dominica.
This is the Dominica clause right there.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. That is for Dominica because the Europeans know this. They've seen the transactions. They will see the transactions because every single transaction that takes place in U.S. currency goes through a U.S. bank somewhere. So they know exactly what's happening. They're seeing the diversion. They're feeling sorry for Dominica. And now they're speaking out. And we're really thankful for that.
Yeah. And you're talking about close to about $8 billion out there.
Yes.
Just in 7 years. I'm just talking about the 7 years that was that Mr. Linton tabulated that you had 46,615 passports sold. We expected $10 million revenue, and also only $1.2 billion, $10 billion in revenue, and only 1.2 billion reached Dominica. You know, so that is where the challenge is, and 9 billion, sorry, and 1.2 billion, so 7.9 or 7.8 is out there.
Yes.
No, 2.1 billion, sorry, and 7.9 is out there.
Is out there.
So, you know, so is a serious challenge, and that clause, Dr. Fountain, we need to talk. You, as the financial expert, can give us a better understanding of why that clause was put in there by the EU and why it is directed to only Dominica.
You see, what the EU is concerned about, and that's why they have not taken action up to now, because they've been very concerned that they do not want to so impact the livelihoods of people in the islands, and especially in Dominica, because right now more than 60% of the revenues coming to Dominica is on the basis of the revenue of that program. So they don't want that to happen. But they have been seeing, they're reading the news, they're seeing the figures, and they know that this money is not coming into Dominica. And that's the reason why they've been very clear on saying that has to be done. What I'd have liked them to have gone even further and to say, even for monies in the past, they should insist that whatever is out there, that 7 million comes in, before, but it's something. If you notice as well, Spags, you saw this release from the CBI. We have a new director of the CBI, Mary Therese Johnson, and she indicated that they were going to do the due diligence and they were going to do the interviews, but there was no mention in the budget or anywhere else by the Prime Minister about this one of returning the monies into Dominica. So it means that if they do not take that action, the EU most likely will take additional action against Dominica. And that is why we keep saying that this thing is not sustainable. But it's very important to note that I think that is vindication for the United Workers' Party, vindication for Mr. Lennox Linton, consistently saying, as the leader of the opposition, consistently pushing that narrative that these monies need to come back. And now the EU is saying, yes, those accounts are out there. Monies have been diverted, and they're insisting that those monies which have been diverted into those offshore accounts come back into country. And they're very clear. It must come directly into the country. And that is something, it's in our legislation. It is in our rules that any income raised by the government should come into the consolidated fund. But this government has been out there on their own, doing their own thing, diverting millions and millions of dollars while the people of Dominica suffer. And, Spags, this to me is one of the most hurtful experiences, that we have potentially so much resources out there, and yet this country is struggling. People are hurting, to pay their school fees. I listened to a very sad story of this lady talking about, the kind of cost. A son had a broken arm, and it cost like $18,000 that she's expected to pay for pins in the foot and so on. And people don't have band-aids, and all of the horror stories here coming out of the hospital. No equipment, no this, no the other, and you have all of those monies sitting up there in accounts, some of it going into buildings in downtown Kuwait. We have a little piece of Dominica. I don't know if you're aware of that. We have a little piece of Dominica in the middle of Dubai. Right. There's this 20th story building there in Dubai that's built by Mr. The one who has all of the MMC. So we have to insist, and we need to continue to insist, Dominica, that those monies come back into us. And now we have an ally in the European Union that insisting on the same thing. So let's see how this government is going to behave.
Yeah. Dr. This from 2016 to 2023, 46,615 citizenships, revenue 10.6 billion, amount deposited in the consolidated account 2.7 billion, unaccounted balance 7.9 billion. So that's where this doc is a serious situation that needs to be addressed. And I'm happy, as you said, that the EU is at least beginning to point it out, and we need to address it going forward.
Yeah.
But before we change gears, doc, and let's you talk about the budget 2023 to 2024 national budget. I just want to ask us out there who can assist that Lemuel Williams Patches is in need of blood at the hospital. If you can donate, I would like you to go there. Former Labor Commissioner. He works in the Labor Division for a long time. He's, I think he's a member of the Yahweh Church. Very nice gentleman from Fonkole. There is a flyer out there asking people to go to donate blood for him. And so if you can and you're willing to donate blood to a very nice gentleman who's not doing too well at the hospital, you can go in there and make some blood donation to him. And also come on behalf of Mr. Lemuel Williams, better known as Patches. All right? So you can go there and give him that support. Yes, Doc, let's get back to the business at hand. The budget address was delivered by Dr. Colin McIntyre, Irvin McIntyre, on the 25th of July 2023. And it's about $1.3 billion budget. And you followed it, Doc. And tonight you'll be speaking, giving some breakdowns, and to the budget, and see the pros and cons, the loopholes, and what we have to look at, and what that budget means to Dominicans, if it's something good, something bad, or in between, but you will dissect it for us. Doc, it's all yours.
Yes, Spax, thanks a lot. And it's $1.06 billion. We should be talking about a $7.2 billion budget, because that's about the money that is out there that should be going into financing, all of the projects. But I want to take my time tonight and to go through this budget that was presented by Dr. McIntyre, medical doctor. And I don't want to be critical, because there's a lot that I could say about the budget itself, and a lot of stuff that is in there that really does not belong in a budget. In fact, the budget reads more like a political campaign speech, filled like with empty promises, and filled with a lot of stuff. Like, for example, they talk about education reform, health reform, legal reforms, the building of all of those capital projects. And then you look at the budget, and the budget only grows by about by less than $0.2 billion, by less than 200, by less than sorry, by $20 million. That's the amount it grows by over. So I'm wondering, how can you do all of those reforms, all of those things, if just an additional $20 million? It's just not possible. But we'll go through and we'll show the Dominican public exactly why we believe, I think of this budget not only as empty promises, but as a booster budget. These guys that always boast about what they can do, and they come on the scene, and the Guam movement. So then they kind of try to razzle and dazzle. That's what this budget attempts to do. So you had the minister talking about the state of the art facilities, the best the health system has ever been, but everybody knows that the reality is different. Okay, so what you have is a lot of talk, a lot of Guam movement, a lot of different things going on in this budget, and it just does not add up. So I want to take my time and go through very deliberately tonight, and of course we'll be opening up the lines at some point for inputs, but to give it my professional spin. And I want to start with the level of growth, and we'll look at different issues. We'll look at the debt issue, the growth, and the issues that they're supposed to really pin down the budget. They kind of gloss over. So the issue of debt, you have to look very closely to see debt is mentioned, but debt is like a huge problem in Dominica right now. It's a big problem, but we'll come to that in a while. But let me start with the issue of growth, with the issue of GDP growth and the boast, because Dr. McIntyre started by saying, this economy is performing very well. Strong performance, he called it. What is a strong performance? 6.9% in 2021, 5.7% in 2022, and 4.7% in 2023. Now, in the normal scheme of things, when you hear 6.9% growth, you'll say, wow, this country is on a roll, this country is blazing. But this 6.9%, it came after a reduction in growth of 21% in 2020. 2020 was the year of probably the biggest impact we had of the COVID pandemic. So it was to be expected. Revenues fell and everything fell. The economy practically collapsed. It fell by 21%. So you're coming from this extremely low base of a reduction of 21%. So what you really need to do is that you need to grow back. You need to grow the economy in such a way that you erase this negative growth. You erase this 21% negative growth. So if we look at the projections of this budget, it will take 4 long years. It will take 4 years, 2021, 22, 23, 24, for us to be able to get back to where we were in 2020. 4 years. All right. Now, why is that a problem? That is a problem because when you look at other countries in the region, for example, I look at the case of St. Lucia. St. Lucia had a similar drop in the GDP. In fact, it fell by 24% in GDP. But guess what? St. Lucia is grew by 15.9% in 2021, 15.9, which means they almost, in 1 year, almost erased that 24%, and they're growing by about 12% in 2022. So in 2 years, St. Lucia is able to erase that 24% reduction. It is going to take Dominica 4 years. So what we have is not strong growth, a strong performance. That the Minister of Finance need to know. This is not considered strong performance. This is considered to be a situation. In economics, we use the language of returning to a steady state, returning to where you were before, to that place of we call equilibrium and so on, where the economy normally functions in normal times, without hurricanes, without any kind of COVID-19 or anything like that. So it will take 4 years, and that is what we need to draw from that. So that is one. That the growth that is cited is certainly not enough. And if you look again at the average over the 20 years of this Labour Party government, growth rate has been less than 1%. And I keep telling the Dominican public that for our country to move forward, for us to experience the kind of job opportunities, the kind of growth in jobs, the kind of growth in businesses, we need to grow the economy on average by 6.5% every year. That has not happened. It is only happening now because of the way we measure the growth and the decline we had in 2020. 2020. So I wanted to make that point first because that's the basis of the budget. That's where it starts. It starts off. Then I want to come to the issue of the revenue breakdown of this budget. And in 2022-23, the CBI accounted for about 57%. In 23-24, it's 60%. So 60% of our budget, so more than $600 million, government is proposing to put back out of the 7.2 billion that's out there. They bring back 600, they bring back 0.6 of that amount for 2023, 2024. Now, why is that a problem? Why is it? And the problem is, and we'll talk in a while about the revenue measures that the government is taking. What this government has not been able to do is that it has not been able to grow the economy sufficiently. And as such, the revenues, like the tax revenue, because there are two major areas of government revenue. You have your tax revenues and your non-tax revenues. And what you really want to do is you want your tax revenues to be at a level that it can sustain you. So that, for example, if tomorrow, because you're used now to $1 billion in spending, if tomorrow the CBI program disappears in 24-25, we no longer have the CBI program, we have a serious problem because you only have about $385 million that you're able to collect from the economy, but your spending is already at $1 billion. Where are you going to get the $700 million to spend? So we have a very serious problem, and that's why so much emphasis has been placed on the sustainability of this thing. So let's talk about the revenues that this government is proposing in this budget. And I'm going to make the comparison because the total payments coming out of this recurrent revenue, because you're using typically recurrent revenue to pay back debt. In 2023-2024, the government is proposing to pay back $116.6 million in debt payments. Now, this $116.6 million, it is more than the total wage bill of the government. The total wage bill of the government is about $100 million, and they're repaying back $116.6 million in debt service payments. To put this in another fashion, if you add your debt payments and your salary payments, that's already more than 50% of your recurrent revenues. It's already more than 50%. So it means that you have very little left over for other things. And that's the reason why there were no things at the hospital. That's the reason why your schools have no supplies. That's the reason why no wage increases can be given to the public servant, because you have very little monies left over because of this huge crushing debt burden. That's the reason why the government has not been able to increase the size of even the public service. When people retire and so on, unless you're probably a teacher, or they don't replace people retiring. People are leaving all the time, they are not replaced. So you have a situation where your spending is such that your revenues cannot support it. So the government now is trying in this budget to get measures. All right, they're thinking, well, how do we raise revenues? We cannot increase the VAT. The VAT is already punishing, but even the VAT, I noticed this year the estimate for the VAT in the budget is just about $185 million. Okay, that's $185 million. It is estimated that the VAT is going to make. So that is not a lot of money, and they're looking at other areas. The VAT is maxed out, so they're trying to see how much revenues that they can raise, and they've come up with, I counted a total of 8 different measures, revenue measures in the budget that the government is proposing. So let's take a closer look at these 8 revenue measures. The first one they're proposing is to increase the stamp duty on outbound money transfers of 2% by 2%. So it means that everybody's sending money through MoneyGram or Western Union out of Dominica. They just have it on outbound. So effectively what the government is trying to is they're targeting, you remember the Prime Minister stated that $217 million went out of Dominica. So they're trying to get a little piece of that amount going back out when they're going to tax. So every time, Haitian or somebody from the Dominican Republic or wherever they are from living in Dominica sending money through this system, they're going to be charged an extra 2% that will come to government. They call it a stamp duty, but it's really a tax that they're placing on the money transfers. My calculation is that this is still not a whole lot, because 2% of $200 million is just $4 million. So that's the amount they will get from that $4 million. Then there is the increase in license fees that are paid by the financial institutions. They're going to impose on offshore banks. It's going to increase from $8,000 to $25,000 for each bank that's registered. The credit unions are anywhere between $10,000 and $100,000. But again, that's not a lot of money. My calculations based on that measure is about $1 million
What do you
in
think?
revenue.
What do you think about the taxation of the credit unions, the fees imposed on the credit unions?
I think it might be illegal. I'm not certain, but I seem to recall that there's legislation that the way the credit unions are defined, that they're exempt from paying those types of taxes. But that is something that I need to look at. You see, the issue is, and what the government, the argument put in forward in the budget is that they have incurred a lot of costs to police the institutions, because the credit unions are becoming more like banks. They're really near banks, in terms of the clientele, because when the credit union was first thought of, it was considered to be like targeted towards the poor person, the farmers and so on.
But they build the credit union. They are the foundation of the credit union. And the principles that the credit union was built on, coming from the days of Sister Alicia. Why these principles are not looked at before imposing those fees on the credit unions? And that is the concern that I have. I am not saying they should not be taxed or they should not be fees, but why these sudden fees are you imposing just for tourist funds revenue? And not cutting it short, Doc, recently, about 2 or 3 months ago, on the animal program, Clarence Christian and Tony Asaf, and they started talking about the type of revenues coming from the different credit unions around Dominica. I heard them personally. And when I heard that, it was not coincident. They were looking at places that they can tax to bring in revenue. That is a concern that I have. And I'm hoping that you made a very important point about if that is right. If it might be illegal, let us look at it. But to impose these type of taxes on the credit union that was built on principles. We can get the principle from the Catholic Church, who started the credit union league. So I just wanted to bring that in, because that is a concern that I have. But also, not being discussed since it came out 2 days ago.
Yeah, indeed. And also what it shows back is desperation on the part of the government. Yeah. You see, what you really want to do is you want to grow the economy. You see, if you grow the economy, you don't have to look for all of those silly fees and taxes. Because if you grow the economy on your existing VAT rates and tax rates and custom duties, you can raise enough revenues. But because the economy has been shrinking, because the economy of Dominica has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller, they have to look everywhere for money. It's like when you're broke, you start looking in all your pockets. You start looking, you go back, looking at every corner of your house, hoping you can see, a dollar you did not know you have somewhere. And that's exactly what we see the government doing. That to me is desperation. When you start taxing those things, and it's not a whole lot of money, because like I said, even then, even at that level, $1 to $2 million is probably the most you're going to get out of that revenue measure. And the question is, why put so much effort into measures that are not yielding even much? But again, it shows the level of desperation that is there. Then there is the money that they are placing, or the $15,000 that they're going to be charging money transmission services. So people like Western Union and MoneyGram and so on will be paying $15,000. Again, that's not a whole lot. Then there is the debt repayment fund, which I found to be an interesting one, because this one, they are going to be charging each investor in the CBI program, going to be charging them $5,000. They're going to be charging them $5,000 per investor. That has the potential to raise some money, because if you're talking about an average of 2,000 passports a year, by by 5,000, that's that's substantial. That's $10 million that possibly could come from that. Okay, then there is the fee for the CBI agents that they're going to charge is the CBI agents, and then there is this what we call the sin taxes. They're increasing the price on or the taxes on liquor, 25 cents on the liter. And then the one I found that was really interesting, they hinted at, but they've not done it as yet, is that they're going to go back after the petroleum products.
Yeah.
They're saying that they've not changed those taxes in over 20 years. They're going to put some committee together to look at the taxes. So new taxes are coming on petroleum products, most likely in the next couple of months. It was not clearly defined in the budget, but that is something they say they're looking at as a potential area of revenues. So it means that the basic taxes that have been paid, which will obviously increase the price of gasoline, is going to come. It will increase the price of liquid oil, liquid petroleum that the people use to cook. It will increase the price of, well, you don't cook with liquid petroleum, you cook with
LPG.
LPG. It's liquid petroleum.
Yeah, the same.
Liquid
Yeah,
petroleum. Yeah.
yeah.
And then you have the of course your kerosene and your
Right.
and your gas and some diesel and so on. So these are the measures that's all the government could actually find to increase revenues. And so I am saying that these revenue measures are not enough. And really, what the government has to do is to grow the economy. And that is why, if I would advise the Minister of Finance, I would tell him, focus your attention on growing the economy, putting together things that will grow
After
the
23 years,
economy.
Doc, can they grow the economy?
No, they can't.
So that's why they have to leave.
That's why. That's absolutely. I think that's the strongest case that we can make for this government to leave. They have failed the people of Dominica.
So what your recommendations tonight is more or less for a United Workers Party government or new government to implement?
Absolutely. Because they cannot do it. It is clear these people they're not able to do it. I mean, you can see from the way the budget is constructed, from the kind of measures that they have in the budget, it's really a boastful budget, but there is nothing, no substance in terms of the pillars of the economy, in terms of how you grow an economy, in terms of how you tackle your wasteful spending. The only thing I saw about wasteful spending is they talk about they want to cut back on paper. So they're cutting back on paper is that they will not have public servants file income taxes again. if you're just making money from income tax from one salary or salary of government, you won't file. So they will reduce paper that way. But yeah, you're going to realize a few $1,000s in savings. On how much can you really realize? They're not really cutting the really wasteful spending. They're not cutting for example, these the tax break. And that's what I was looking for in the budget. I wanted the government to tell us how much they actually give in tax breaks. That's the kind of information you've put in a budget, and it's not there. Or how much money has this government given as favors to friends of the Labour Party to bring their vehicles in duty free? That's the kind of information I would like to see. How much revenues are you losing? It's not in there. It's not in the budget. So much I think is missing in the budget, and we'll go through. Now I see somebody's been trying to reach us a lot. I know they wanted to comment on this. We can take it on the revenues and we can move forward. But that's the first one I wanted to look at in terms of the budget, the revenues.
You're listening to the Workers' Voice. Here in studios with me is Dr. Thompson Fountain. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yes, good evening, guys. Good evening, Dr. Fountain. Good evening, Spags. How are you guys doing?
All right, doing well. Good
Doing
evening.
well. Can I speak up a bit?
Good. Yeah, man. Listening to you guys tonight, man, very interesting. I've seen Dr. Fountain doing his best try to explain to the Dominican public exactly what's going on. But you can remember one time Julius Timothy said to this guy that there's a set of people that want a job and they know they can't do the job, but they want to stay there. They know they can't do the job. I'm just trying to paraphrase what he said, right? And the 23 years have really shown that those guys cannot do the job. I think the bottom line to that right now, it shows that the guys are lazy. They haven't used the brain in 23 years to create anything that the public can grow on, that the people could grow on, to develop themselves, you know, make money for themselves, buy a new home, pay for land. Nothing. The guys haven't been creative in anything. Everything they have done so far was destruction. They got a coffee plant, they get coffee, and they still couldn't produce 1 ounce of coffee in a bag so that people can buy it. Right? Agriculture totally wiped that out. Right? We have Antigua next door. Once upon a time, Terry went to Barbados and tell the Barbadians, we'll be your food basket. We'll be able to supply you guys food. Up to now, as one Bajan say, they haven't gotten one grapefruit from Dominican. Right? And that is 23 years ago. Now, one of the other things is I hear some people, like a lot of people now, crying, saying, you know, the government this, the government that, and things not working out, hospitals not working out, and what's that. You know, they're unemployed, the medical bills are huge. And I can remember when the Farmer's Voice came off, they used to have the Farmer's Voice program. And those guys used to be there every morning on the program, crying as to what's going on in the farming industry and how it's going to wipe them out. And everybody else was making the little dollar over here, $5 over here, nurses, doctors, you know, other people, everybody making the money. Nobody cared about the farmers. Nobody cared about the farmers at the time. Now, farming is one of the main pillars of Dominican economy, or should be, right? And after you destroy that, it's like your house on the pillar, and you destroy one of the main pillars, and the house keeps sloping, and it will eventually fall down. Not that because you're up on the roof, you think it won't affect you. It will take a little longer time to get you up on the roof. But as you destroy the pillars, you up there will start feeling the pain. And I can never forget when the farmers called for help. Everybody stayed at the home because it wasn't their business. I'm not a farmer. Huh? I ain't producing nothing. I working in my office, I have my air conditioner, I have my loan, I have my car. So why listen to farmers' voice for? Nobody gave the farmers attention. But that was your main pillar for survival. So everybody sit down and wait until that to go, and now everybody's screaming. Sometimes I don't feel like I have that empathy for those folks. Because that was the time you guys should say, well, hey, man, this is one of the main pillars of our economy. If the farmers don't grow, if they don't plant, if they don't ship, it's going to eventually come to us. We will be able to buy our bread, right? We will be able to send our children to school. We will be able to go on vacation. The salary we're getting will shrink. Everything will become more expensive because the farmers are not producing. We're not shipping anything. Ian Douglas had promised the farmers a boat, 2 boats, one going north and one going south. Up to now, I guess maybe the boat and them sink in Portsmouth, if at all they ever arrive, right? And the economy has gone from bad to worse. To, I understand there's a new word now they call wussa, okay? And it's ridiculous to be sitting there and supporting those guys after 23 years of basically no production, none whatsoever, for you to say that we should give them another chance or they should get another chance into the running the country. They don't know how to run the country. They know how to steal. They're number one in the Caribbean for that. They know how to embezzle funds. They're number one in the Caribbean for that. And Austria himself had to come back and say, we last in everything. He forget to mention that the first in stealing and then first in embezzling funds in the entire Caribbean and maybe the world. You know? So it's gonna be tough. Whichever party or whichever next government that come into possession, right? It's gonna be tough to lift that economy out from the hole where it is. It's gonna take some smart people. It's gonna take good financing, good organization, maybe having what you call, So some special committees looking at different areas in order to pull Dominica together again and for us to rise from that ash. And we can do it. With the right people in place, we can do it. If we leave those guys that we currently have, say they're running the country, to run the country again, boss, believe me, I just think Antilles, Liat, Silver Airlines will have enough space to take people, as they just pour out because they realize that, there's no hope for me here, right? But we can stop that, right? And it's going to be up to the U.W.P, other organizations to come together and put something together where we can say, man, time for those guys to go. If it means we have to block the road for a whole month, then let it be, right? But the pain is too much. I mean, right now, people are dying in the hospital because of what? Lack of supplies. My mom died in 1975. In 1972, we did enough farming where we could pay for my mother's treatment in Barbados, send a nurse to Barbados to attend to her, had the nurse stay in a hotel for 2 weeks, and we could do that on farming. And that was in 1972. We're talking about in 2023, people going up for a little cut in their hand and they're coming back in a box. I mean, it's ridiculous. And we're talking about we have the best healthcare system. Bro, I applaud you guys for staying there. I applaud you guys for hanging in. I applaud you guys for trying to educate the people as to exactly what's going on. And hopefully, one day, things are going to change. They say there's always hope. And as long as there is death, there's always hope because no man lives forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colette, for your contribution. Well received contribution. We are listening to the Workers' Voice. In studios with me is our political leader, Dr. Thompson Fountain. We are looking at the 2023-2024 budget as presented by the Minister of Finance, Dr. Irvin McIntyre. Doc, you said there are some other areas you would like to touch on, so continue.
Yes, sure. Yeah, I want to continue because, in terms of the measures in this budget, I mean, the government is going after birth certificates. And, I'm shaking my head and I'm saying, how hopeless is this government? How completely hopeless is this government? And mark you, Spags, if you look at some of those measures in that budget, it's the people who are the most vulnerable, those that have been targeted. People who are sending like money through, Western Union or through MoneyGram, people who have to go register birth or register a death and so on. And they're just paying, increased fees for marriage and birth certificates from $5 to $20.
300%.
300% increase. And then it just appears to me that the government, they don't know what to do. But let me explain what the Dominica's problem is. There are two major problems in Dominica. One, the economy has not been growing. And secondly, is a very high level of unemployment. So any budget that you present to the Dominican public, you should be thinking of innovative ways to tackle those two problems. Because if you tackle the growth problem, you don't have to worry about looking to tax people on birth certificates or to tax credit unions or to impose stamp duties on odd money transfers. You don't have to be trying to tweak all of those little areas because the economy would have a natural buoyancy, a natural growth to it, and you can make your money through taxes. That is how economies operate. You provide jobs, people pay taxes, people buy goods and services when the jobs are created. So if you tackle those two issues, and every budget presented should be looking at that, and when you think of the level of monies that are being borrowed, and I'll give you another example. So the government says in the budget that they want to focus on businesses. They want to focus on small businesses. So they've given loans. They've given 200 loans. Guess the total value of those loans, $1.6 million. So you let all of the business. What can $1.6 million do for 200 different businesses? What can you do if you have a small business trying to make soaps? Like I stopped tonight at the fair they have in down in Maho, and I mean I was basically blown away to see the kind of products that people are doing, the kind of things, young women in particular. We have this lady who's doing the quality honey. We have this lady who's doing this different oils, from castor oil to coconut oil to moringa oil, and having to go through those processes, manually, crushing the seeds of the moringa plant to get the oil and so on. I'm saying, these are beautiful businesses that, if given the correct support, can create quite a number of jobs. But right now this is just family kind of thing. But if you give $1.9 million and you're boasting about that in a budget for 200 people, and you're turning around and you're borrowing $96 million, what is that $96 million going towards as a government? What are you using these monies for? So the government continues to increase the level of debt. And Mark, I read the entire budget twice, and nowhere did I see them mention the stock of debt. And that to me is a cardinal sin. You cannot have a budget and not tell the Dominican public what the level of debt is. It is not in the budget. They're ashamed of it. So I suspect it's probably 13. It should well be over $1 billion. No, well, probably 1.3, 1.4 billion dollars, which would be bigger, mark you, than the size of the budget. All right. So your level of debt is bigger than your budget, is bigger than your GDP. Okay, so you have a serious problem, but they will not report it. And this business and government is very good at that. They like to hide information. They hide the statistics, for example. They don't want you to get the census figures to see that the population is shrinking. They hide that. They hide critical information about what the true debt levels are. That is hidden. So you have this, and then they kind of just weave stories around, this what I call the boaster stories around what they're trying to do, and at the end of the day there is very, very little substance.
Doc, you touched an area that I wanted to ask a quick question about small businesses. You said you read the report twice. Is there any relief for small businesses in particular?
There is not, outside of these monies within the aid bank that they spoke about, but it's not targeted. It did not come across to me as saying, okay, we are going to target. And the way you do this, and the way that this should be done, and I'm giving free advice to the government, the way you do this is you say, okay, we are going to give $5 million or $10 million, and this $10 million, we are targeting the creation of X amount of jobs. Okay, so we are targeting the creation of 100 jobs, because from that $10 million we're going to give to small businesses, so that our small businesses can now employ an additional 1,000 people, additional 5. That is what you do. That's how you do it. But none of that information is there. They're saying, okay, we are giving loans, but who are getting those loans? If you give me a loan for $15,000, what am I going to do with this? I'm going to take a trip probably, and not invest in the business with that kind of money. So you have those issues then. And I'm telling you, there are good companies. I saw with my own eyes tonight the kind of products that people are doing from their own efforts, even with a little help from the government. How much more can be done? How much more can be done?
And there's something that came up again. Import duties. I'm hearing a lot of small business owners in Dominica talking about the rate, import duty rate. How can that affect?
Man, you raise a critical point. Practically everything, even where you're pressing the coconut oil and you're doing these local products, there is some element of imports in it. You have to buy the bottles, for example. Overseas, we don't blow bottles in Dominica. You have to buy the bottles. You have to buy the paper to do the labeling and all the rest of it. That's the areas you want to create relief for. You want to target certain items that are going towards the constructive industries where people can create things and create jobs. You want to be able to target those to make it affordable, so that the cost of production goes down, and then these persons making those products can now sell at a lower price, but they will make up with it with the volume. These are the kinds of innovative things that you don't find in this government budget. So there's a lot of throwing things around. Oh yeah, we'll give 200 people. So yeah, I'm going to support 200 people, but what is there to show? And that is where the problem is.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
All right.
Let me tell you what happening now. Me, another economic man.
Hello, can you lower down the volume for radio, please?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Another man that know about economics. But I can tell you, I've traveled in the Caribbean already and I see all the government system running the people by creating avenue, creating jobs for an opportunity for the people. Because I was always revealing that the more people that work in the economy, that means a lot of tax collected and people can feed themselves and their family and things can be moving and grooving for everybody, you know? But them man, there is always a secrecy government. Everything they're hiding, they don't like to listen. They only believe they know everything, you know? Yeah, and while I'm fooling them now, more money they see in there is the head getting big, but they know how to spend it. They know how to make it grow, to make the economy move and groove. So everybody can benefit, even themselves benefit too. But what them man doing, most of the money, they benefited more than people that's struggling to make two ends meet, like the private sector. You know, trying to create opportunities to get the private sector moving and grooving by creating more jobs, opportunity for people. So then you open like a business there, and the little funds you're making is to buy stuff for the business, is to pay transportation and all them kind of things. The man doesn't think about that. All he's thinking about is trying to collect tax from what you're making. But what you're making is nothing much, because why? People are not there to spend, to make the economy move and groove. They're not thinking about it at all. So them man there, like I said, them man is all for themselves, brother man. But just to create avenues for people, you know? And another thing they like to do, they like to criticize people. And they like to, you know, like when they give you something, and when they come and beg you all the time, when they give you something now, they're saying, oh, you know what, vote for me. Put me there for another 5 years. But all that time now, they're enriching themselves and their family. And we are the poor people now struggling to make two ends meet. You know what I mean? And when we talk about them, they put it on the side. They tell me nothing. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? Yeah, put you off. And that's why the man hate the opposition. You know why? They want to remain in power forever. Amen. But at the same time now, they're crippling the economy because they know how to make it move and groove. And it's what happening, brother man.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yes, good evening, Sparks, and good evening to Mr. Fountain, Dr. Fountain.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, well, I must speak on it again because I am a credit union child. Okay, I was born into a family who was very much involved in credit union. I mean, people will maybe say I'm trying to boast, but my father got the Cicero Award in 1983 for his credit unionism work. And I believe the government putting taxes on the credit union is a bad thing. Very bad, because one of the things that's going to start happening with that is the credit unions are not going to be able to compete too much with the banks. They're going to have to end up keeping their interest up, or maybe even raising their interest by 0.5% or something like that, so that they can maybe pay the whatever is asked of them at the end of the year. And the dividends, the people will not be able to get dividends. The poor people will not be able to get dividends. And I just think it is a retrogressive move for this administration to tax credit unions. You know, I will say that ad nauseum because I don't think that is something that they should have targeted at all. Okay, they are happy. I noticed sometime before that they would have been happy that happened. What happened? The passing of Mr. Clement Carty. He was under the credit union person, and that would not have happened during his time because he would talk about it strongly. Okay, so this is something I believe that should not happen, and they should take it out like they were trying to put taxes on people's rental income, and they should stop that. Take off that taxing of the credit union. Okay, you can put the taxes, as they said some years ago, on cigarettes and rum. I believe every bottle of rum, no matter whether it's a liter, half a liter, a quarter liter, should be taxed at $2 more, $1.50 more, and cigarettes should go up, you know, so that these things will be able to give them the kind of money, because no matter what it is, some people will always smoke and some people will always drink. But taxing the poor people in the credit union is a very, very bad thing, and they need to relook that and rethink that and take that off the books for taxing the credit union people. Good morning. Good evening, sorry.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your contribution. Good evening, Mr. Akroy Birmingham. I know you made a lot of contribution in the credit union movement. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice. You on the Voices line. Are you listening to us, caller? Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, brothers. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, you know, over the last couple of days, I've been researching that American and English relationship, and the interesting thing is there are about 6 or 7 other European countries that are having conversations on these same lines. So what it means is this passport program is going to end, my brothers. It is going to end. It's going to end. And so the fact of the matter is, I heard you guys talking about the taxes and those things, and you're right, Thompson, Tony, and Stefan, and them did legitimize that conversation. But it is because these guys know, the innards of the party know, that taxes have to be raised in Dominica in all different ways because this program is in trouble. And this program is now 60% of our budget, of our lifestyle, our economy. So I just want, you guys to be very careful of the language in terms of these taxes because we might have to talk about these taxes moving forward ourselves. You understand? Because Dominica is in trouble, serious trouble. And I just want us to that as a party, I think the United Workers' Party seriously has to begin talking about something that is very difficult to talk in Dominica: the removal of the Roosevelt-Skerrit government. Not on no electional term, but because to save the country, we really have to start legitimizing that conversation because Dominica is in trouble. And if we have to sit on there playing, waiting on the term of Roosevelt-Skerrit for another 4 or 5 years, and CBI is on lockdown, what is any party going in there going to inherit? It's gonna be serious problems. So I just want the party to really understand what is facing us and why a different sort of dialogue needs to begin taking place. That's all I will say for now. But we have to begin thinking about what we're doing moving forward against this government because time is running out in terms of saving Dominica. Peace and blessings, brothers.
Thank you very much for your contribution, caller. You can call us at 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. Office's number 305-432-9624, 305-432-9624. Digital number 616-4257, 616-4257. And you can WhatsApp me on 767-265-4334, 265-4334. In studios with me is Dr. Thompson Fontaine, and we're speaking about the budget. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yeah, good evening. How are you, sir?
Fine, sir.
Okay, Mr. Fontaine, I'd like to ask you a question. This one dedicated to Mr. Thompson Fontaine. So, I would like to ask, presently, how many banks are functioning in Dominica right now?
How many banks? There are just two commercial banks and credit unions. 2 commercial banks, yeah.
Okay. You know what I'm looking at? I suspect now the government cannot go to these banks anymore, and right now they want to tax the credit union. This is the only reason. And because the banks that are in Dominica presently, they are on the verge to be shut down. The only reason why they're shutting down those banks is because of the CBI program. And I think you have enough information to know that the international communities want to shut down those banks. But just because of the CBI program, which is so fraudulent, that they just know that is the only way that Dominica economy sustains, just by about 58%. And this is the reason why that's the only thing left. So the government has no other alternative than to go to the credit union. And secondly, I would like to tell you that I would like you to stop giving information to this cabal. This is not a government. This is a bunch of cabal, a bunch of vagabonds, a bunch of roots. Stop giving those guys any information about how to do whatever. The budget is fraudulent. It is garbage. It is not good. Just to go in the dump, just like how the electoral reform results from Anthony had to go in the dump. So we need to stop giving those guys information and give me a clear insight about that banking situation, why they are heading for the credit union. Stop giving information to those guys. Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice. Hello.
Good night.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
Yes, can you turn on your radio, please?
Excuse me?
Can you turn off your radio, please? Are you listening to your radio?
I can hardly hear you.
because you're listening to the radio. Hello.
Hello?
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, there's a question that's bothering me, and I don't really know the answer. And I don't know if you or Mr. Fontaine can supply that answer. Visitors to this island, they cannot use their cards in the ATM of the government bank. It works fine at the Republic Bank, but not at the government bank. Can you tell us why is it that visitors are unable to withdraw money from an ATM of the government bank?
Wow, that's an interesting one. And the only what comes to mind first is that there must be some problem within the bank itself, because typically there is this arrangement that the banks have where they're able to clear transactions against each other, so that if you for example you belong to, say, Chase Bank, you have a Chase bank account or you have a Chase debit card, and you come to Dominica with it, you want to use it in a local bank that is the correspondent bank is, say, Bank of America. There is that understanding that those transactions will go through and that they clear at the end of the day electronically, that they cleared. So if that is happening, and I will test that for sure to see. But if that is happening, then what most likely is that there is some difficulty that the bank is experiencing, where they are not being honored. The bank itself is not being honored. That would be one of the main reasons for that shortcoming. But it's a very serious one as well, because typically you expect that, you can go to those ATMs, do the withdrawals, and it will be honored. If they're not honoring, then there is something going on that we need to find out from the authorities.
Hello. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hey, good evening to you. Spark, what's going on?
Cool, man. Everything good?
Yeah, everything doing good. I am on a crusade, a mission today. It's pretty unusual that I spoke this afternoon and tonight, because the situation we find ourselves in is worse than it really appears. It's like an iceberg that we just barely scratching the surface, and is underneath that has issues. And how I know it has issues, it's by the actions and activities that has been going on for the past few days. And I really feel sometimes to give up, and sometimes we talk because people apparently get so used to their current situation that it's no longer painful. But let me just, there are a couple things that shows how serious we are. Here it is, if I have an industry like we had the banana industry before, and I have a manufacturing processing plant or whatever in Dominica that produces something, making $100 million in revenue every year, here's what it creates. It creates jobs for accountants. It creates jobs for marketing. It creates jobs for drivers, for packaging, for shipping, for raw material delivery, for a whole list of primary support. In addition to that, when you have all these workers, now you need restaurants, the taxi drivers, laundromats, entertainment. All these things come around because one industry is bringing that revenue. You have a passport industry, a citizenship by investment industry, and the only thing it needs is a printer and an individual to sign, some ink and some paper, because what they get is a certificate of naturalization, and they use that to go purchase a passport. What other secondary and primary jobs does it create? Absolutely nothing. What it needs are vendors, most of who we don't know where they're from, and people who sell passports and take a cut of that money for themselves and give the government whatever they want. So in a real economic engine. The reason why it is called an engine is because once it starts rolling, it creates additional services that are needed. And I'll give them an example. Toyota moved its headquarters to Dallas, Texas. And when Toyota moved its headquarters to Dallas, Texas, we had over 4,000 people moving from California. That created the needs for schools, restaurants, bars. In addition to Toyota moving, there were companies that supported Toyota that also moved there because they have to support a big industry like that. In the end, it is bringing billions of dollars of revenue to the country. Are we seeing that from Passport? Absolutely not. Where's the majority of the revenue going? Outside of the country. Here's another situation that shows the stupidity of the government we have in office. And every time I talk, I said people don't use the critical thinking skills they have. The same CBI is used for the development of an international airport, a geothermal plant, and the extension of a runway. How are we doing all this infrastructure for capital investment, and we cannot afford to buy equipment for the hospital? That's a serious problem. I don't understand the logic. But here's what's even worse. The people who are building the international airport is a foreign company. The person who is managing the proceeds that comes in to build that airport is a foreigner. That means none of these people who are working do not have bank accounts in Dominica. They do not have loans in our banks. They do not send their children to school in Dominica. They probably do not pay taxes. They do not pay Social Security. And by now, if that was true economic development, the people of Wesley would have apartments renting. They would have restaurants, stores, grocery shops. The people of Calbishi and Marigot would have new restaurants, snack eats, and bars and drinks, providing services to the amount of people who are working in the airport, thereby generating revenue. What is happening? The crook Anthony Hayden, who has basically hijacked our country, is deciding to pay a foreigner. And where does that money go? It goes to their country. So I think 70% of that money that's from the sale of passport is probably not even going to touch Dominica, because I guarantee you he's not paying these companies for any banks in Dominica. It's probably from foreign banks. So that revenue doesn't get there. And at the end of the day, what we are left with a concrete structure. And you hear what the biggest issue is? The excuse of the government is they're using a Chinese company because the Chinese have backing. So that means the security is, if we cannot afford to, if we do not raise the revenues for the airport through the sale of passport, then the Chinese have deep pockets. So you think Mr. Xi is just going to give us money to pay for that airport? No, it's going to be a loan. And I guarantee it's not going to be a grant to build an airport, because the Chinese themselves have said they don't get involved in that. So therefore, there has to be some financing through loans. And who's going to pay for it? It's the people of Dominica are going to be left with the children of our children are going to be left with holding the bag that the current government has created.
Thank you.
And our social security is not benefiting. Our people are not benefiting. The people of the Northeast are fighting right now to get a chance to carry load, because it's the instant gratification of getting a few dollars, not understanding the long-term implications of not having a country that is run properly. My friends, I'm going to say it again, because if you have a budget passed with 60% of that revenue coming from the sale of citizenship, and that is controlled by a foreigner who has no concerns about Dominica, I think that is treasonous, and I think that the Prime Minister had declared war on the people. And how I know he's done that? Because right now he's attacking their savings in the credit union. He's increasing fees on birth certificates. He is increasing the fees on insurance. So now teachers and nurses who build their house probably cannot afford, because they haven't gotten a raise. So the premiums of insurance are going to go up with disasters. People can afford. So that's what you call resilience. And attacking the basic foundation of our society. And if you can declare war on the people like that using money and finances, we have a serious problem. I will state clearly because I know they are listening, and I'm going to say it. Roosevelt Skerritt is nothing but a thief, and a con artist who has spent the last 20 years of trying to see how he can bamboozle the labor rights and the rest of the country to stay in power for his own gratification. And after 20 years, if you cannot brag and boast of where you have brought the country thus far, and you still have to do all these shenanigans to remain in power, you're nothing but a coward, a thief, and a crook. And you need to be dealt with accordingly. Gentlemen, you have a good evening and you have a great day.
Thank you very much, my friend. God bless you. Thank you for your contribution. The phone lines are going. I want to go back to Doc there. Let's take the calls. Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice. Hello, are you listening to us? Person's listening to the radio.
Good night.
Yes, good night.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, the last speaker there hit the jackpot. Hello?
Yes, go right ahead. We're listening to you. Let's speak.
Because right now, you have Chinese taking over Wesley, and then you also have Beijing taking over Melville Airport. We need to do something in this country because after they take Ross University, Senator Barbados, the Beijing in Melville don't want to much send them to Dominica, and that Dominicans can't get work. Some old men, young people, over 40 Beijing in Melville Hall, and the Dominican people can't get work. So we say extended Melville Airport, and what they're doing in Wesley, they're building a military base in Wesley. Not one airport they're building in Wesley. It's a military base they're building in Wesley, right? And this, what his carrot is doing, he's bringing foreigners to fight the people of Dominica. So I do. He destroyed Wesley, the people of Wesley, like Kunumunu, and he bringing people in our borders to hit Marigot. But Dominica will be on a super shit. And we are the village of Marigot. We have to put our foot down. We have to fight and fight this government because this is shit. Right? We're fed up. We're getting fed up of what's going on in Dominica.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution.
It will start.
All right. Yeah. You can see that caller from is very emotional about what's happening in the Wesley area. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah. Boy, it's very sad to see where them kind of things happening in Dominica, brother, man. Never like that before.
Hello, caller. Can you speak up a bit, please?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
It's very sad. Oh, it's very sad to see that our country running that kind of way. It was never like that before. Everybody was moving easy, nice and easy and dandy, you know. But since after that regime coming for 23 years, brother, man, and we like that, we had a party for 4 years and a half. We connected the road from road to different villages. You know what I mean? And within 4 years and a half, we get hurricanes in between, you know, brother, man. You check. We had our agriculture moving good, exporting. We had hucksters exporting stuff. A lot of things happening in agriculture, in manufacturing, in construction. People wasn't crying at them to crying at government to give them job, give them work to do. You know what I mean? Everything was going nice and dandy. The man come and the man was kill everything. Even tourism too, we are moving nice. Already say we need money, we go bankruptcy. And then man have all this money that passing Dominica there for all that 23 years, brother man. And we like that, brother man. And people begging and we just cannot move the way we're supposed to be moving in Dominica. Man, what sense is making at all? You know, making no sense. And now we're trying to attack the credit union, see what we can get from the poor people that put the money there, brother man. I mean, come on, man. What do they want from Dominica? What do they want from Dominica again? Gas price gonna go up again. You know, people will be struggling to buy gas, put in their tank. Things are so tight. The little money you're making there, you're going to put that in the tank. And some people will have me parking there, right? Because things so tight. And you want to go and increase prices on petrol and gas again. But man, what do they want from us again? What they want again? I mean, come on, man. Come on. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution, caller. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hello?
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening, Honorable John.
Good evening, sir.
And let me say good evening to our political leader.
Very good evening to you.
Yeah, Dr. Thompson. This is Bruno speaking here.
All right, great. Great to hear you.
Happy to have you back on island, political leader of the United Workers' Party. And of course, articulating on the issues that really confronting all of us in Dominica at this point in time regarding the whole economic situation and the lack of job and the lack of vision to grow this economy to put the people of Dominica back to work. And we are happy to have you, who your expertise is in that area, and we are happy and proud to have you as the leader of the United Workers' Party, which is a formidable party, a party that has been waiting there over the past several years to rescue this country, and of course to put the people of Dominica back to their farm, back to work, and back to full opportunity and ownership of their country. And we are more than ready and prepared to, of course, to offer that level of service to the people of Dominica. And right about now, the quest is to ask the people of Dominica that over the years we've been pointing out the areas where this government has been failing miserably, and they are unable, they don't have the clue, they don't have the skill, they don't have the competence to be able to transform this country, this economy. And we have people in the party, in the United Workers' Party, that can do that. And we are going to ask the people of Dominica to rally strong behind us and with us, and not only for that, but for the country, for the betterment and the recovery of this country. We need to, of course, build a movement that can, of course, take out this government on our back with immediate effect, because we cannot allow to go any further, to have this regime, this type of people like Al Jazeera call them the hyenas. We cannot have them no more, because here it is, billions of dollars of the state resources that could have helped these people of Dominica. They squander and plunder the resources of the state, and at this point in time, we no longer have no use for them. And we are saying to them that they need to vacate the office of state and clear the way and let the people of Dominica breathe in fresh air, and we will be able to work our way through, and we'll be able to do all of the negotiations that will, of course, bring some sort of pride and dignity back to Dominica and the Dominican people. We are saying in the United Workers' Party and to the people of Dominica to give us a chance, to give the people that are competent, that are able, and we have to be bold. We have to be upfront, because politics and is to show the people that, look, I am able to do a better job than what we have at this present time. And look, people are struggling everywhere you pass, every corner, every end. People are struggling, people are bawling, people are crying, people hands on their head. People don't know what to do. But what we can do at this point in time is, all of us as Dominicans, just one day, just wake up and we decide, Rosso, and we are going to get Dominica back into our hands. We're not going to cry about Chinese. We're not going to cry about
yes, caller. Time to wind up. Thank you very much.
But I'm just winding up. But
yes.
I'm saying we need to mobilize ourselves back, and we need to organize ourselves, and we need to take our country back. We cannot just call in and talk. We need action behind our talk, and Dominicans need to understand we cannot leave it for the party or the politicians, but we, the citizens of this country, we must wake up one day and decide enough is enough, and we are going to take our country back. Thank you for the opportunity, and God bless.
Yes, thank you very much for your contribution. Let's take one final call, and let's go back to Dr. Fountain, because if we do not do that, we're not hear from Dr. Fountain again, because the lines are going crazy. Good evening, and welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yeah, good evening again, gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been speculating, and I say it's speculation because Roosevelt Skerritt got rid of Ross. That's how I am saying it. He got rid of Ross. He did not want 1,800 Americans on Dominica. I am calling on Roosevelt Skerritt to come out of the closet. Just like, when, we know what type of people come out of the closet at some point. He needs to come out of the closet and declare himself a dictator. He needs to stop hiding within the walls of democracy. He needs to come out and admit that is his ambition. and that he has almost achieved it. He got rid of Ross. You know why? Because, in my speculation, he does not want 1,800 Americans here. Because if you're going to be a dictator, 1,800 Americans are not what you want in your country, because they will come for them. And you will no longer be a dictator because they'll come with their military. We know he didn't make any effort, or very little effort. He sent other people to talk to the Ross officials. He ducked them, literally. That's the word we could use. He was ducking them, and they felt sort of, that he wasn't serious about them. So they went to Barbados. Now, whether or not he made a deal on top of that with me to send them there is another story. He may be making multiple deals, but the long and the short is that there are no more 1,800 plus Americans who were staff and students in Portsmouth. So if he's building this international airport, this sounds like a reflection of Grenada. Again, it's high speculation, but time will tell. Grenada, if Americans came.
Yeah.
Sorry about taking all the time, gentlemen. But you see my point.
Yes, point taken.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just want to. The lines are going busy. It's 9:30 already. Dr. Thomas Fonkin had so many points to raise tonight. There, so we just remind you. Right. So yes.
Yeah, I was saying we are still on page 2 of the 30-page budget.
So, Doc, I will we'll close in the line for some time. We'll get back to you in a few, but just allow Dr. Thompson Fonkin to make some more points. Go ahead, Doc.
Okay, thanks. Let me thanks. I mean, all the lines are going, but let me just make a few interventions, and then we'll go back. And then we'll go back to the lines. Let me first say thanks to all of the callers and the interventions. And one thing, a common thread throughout all of the callers is the frustration that we're hearing over and over and over again. People are clearly frustrated because after 23 years, this government has nothing to show by way of progress to this country. If anything, they've taken the country back. And what they've given us in 2023, 2024 is a boastful budget, a budget of smoke and mirrors, a budget of spin and empty promises. That's what we have. And, for example, the government talks about sending thousands of students to earn degrees. Smags, do you really believe that thousands of Dominican students, is that the same government that cannot pay tuition for 10 students, claiming that they've sent thousands with an S of students to earn degrees? So again, these are the kind of boasts and boastful language that we see in this. Really, that has no place in the budget. You might send them, but they didn't maintain them. But it's not possible, because to send 2,000, it means that even 2,000, you'd have to send 100 on average every year for the past 20 years. And that simply has not been the case, So that is one thing. The other thing, and I want to focus a little bit on the public officers, because there is a little mention of public officers. And I know the hard-working public officers in Dominica. I know the hard-working nurses, the police officers, the teachers who commit their lives, who commit their entire working life to support this government, to get up every morning, to go to work 5 days a week, to give their all for country. And at the end of the day, they are not rewarded. They are not given their just deserts. This government has not been able to, over all of these years, provide any kinds of incentives to the public servants. But in this budget, they're promising to increase the wages of public officers on average by 6%. They say the wage bill will increase by 6%. They're going to add an additional $6 million to the wage bill for this year. But I have a problem with that. Is 6% enough to overcome the increases in the wage? So, for example, if you're making $1,000, let's make it easy. You're making $2,000 right now. You've been making $2,000 for the past 15 years. During that time, inflation has risen by at least, let's say, by an average of 5% a year. So over 15 years, inflation has gone up by almost 75% over 15 years. It means effectively your $2,000 is now 3/4 less. All right, your $2,000 is now worth exactly a quarter of what it used to be. a quarter of 2,000 is $500. Effectively, what you have is 500 in your spending power. If you increase it by 6%, that's just a dent in the bucket. You're not going to make anybody's lives better up, for all of those hardworking workers.
A question, Doc. Did they say when they're going to increase that?
It is in this budget,
right?
Yeah.
Another thing as well.
But they didn't say when.
Right.
They didn't say that.
Right.
Okay, by February of the budget year we're going to do. They have not said that. No.
Another question I would like to ask, or a point in that discussion is, for the past years, there have been salary negotiations between the union and the government, and they only getting 0, 0, 0, maybe a double bubble once in a while. Why now all of a sudden 6%? They were just asking for 2% or 1%, or they try 1, 2, 1 or 3 and 3 or 5, 5, 5. And right now you want to increase it by 100 and by 6%, is it?
Yeah, by
6% increase in
yeah.
one financial year. Let me understand that. Or let us understand that. Though.
Yeah, no, but again, as I said, it's a budget of smoke. It's a budget of empty promises and spin. That's what it is, So they're trying to now, at a critical time, when people are talking about protesting, when people are talking about electoral reforms and so on, they're trying to pacify people. But the fact of the matter is that does not go far enough. That is not enough for the public servants. And again, by failing to grow the economy, you have put your public servants in a position where people are truly struggling. And you see that frustration. The public servants, I talk to people all the time, and the story is the same. And they're not kidding you when they tell you that things are hard. And the reason why it is because year in, year out, the value of whatever it is that you're earning is decreasing. When I worked in Dominica in 1993 in the public service in Dominica in 1993, I was making about the same amount that people are making now. How many years later? 30 years later? Yeah. It's unbelievable. But that's exactly where we are, Spags. And when I look at this budget, I'm like, is that all this government can offer? And the wage bill they're talking about will only take us back to the level it was in 2021. Which again makes the point that I was making earlier, that they've been shrinking as much as possible the public service. They've not been replacing people when they leave. Over time, it has been getting smaller and smaller. The government has been paying people less than the minimum wage, because if someone is earning $1,000, that's less than a minimum wage, in also, this day and age.
You also have a serious problem of people acting for very long
time. Yeah, for the very same reason, because if they put you into the position, they'll have to pay the associated, whether it's an allowance or what it is that they do, and the increment on your salary scale. So, they've not done, this government has not treated the public servants with respect, quite frankly. They've not done right by the public servants. And I think that is where we have a very serious issue. And I believe that the public servants, should really understand that they've been really treated as we say, torchon. They've not been treated right. And that comes out very, very, very strongly in this. So, there is a lot of talk in the budget about legal reforms, for example, what they're going to do with the legal system and so on, increase the magistrates court and, have more people. When you go into the magistrates court, I've spent quite a lot of time there over the past couple of months, and where the magistrate has to be typing in, writing in, or typing in his own, that should not be. There should be a stenographer taking, I'm like, things that are so critical that you need to recall later on what a lawyer says or what the intervention was. And then you have now to rely upon the magistrate himself taking his notes. What if those notes are fraudulent? What if those notes are not really what was said? Right. So it just boggles the mind that up to now we've not addressed this. And again, you don't address these things in just a budget. In a yearly budget. These are big issues, ongoing issues that you have to really address in a very fundamental way to make a difference, and then this endless backlog of cases that are within the service, it's literally clogged up, denying justice. During the time I sat in the magistrate's court, there was a guy who had something since 2015 or something like that, and now And after constant adjournment, I mean, that is denial of justice. It should be after 2 3 days. If you can't hear the case, you have to dismiss it or something. You can't have people constantly going for the system, constantly going. This lady who had to take time from her work to come down to Dominica, only to be told when she's there, it's been adjourned again for another. And she did it, is frustrated, she's crying because how am I going to get the time? I paid so much money to come just to attend to this case. You cannot continue doing this over and over and over again. Even my own case packs, the amount of time I had to come before we got to this point, you waste time, So fundamentally, these things need to be fixed. The structure is what needs to be worked on. And what I see in the budget is really just kind of fiddling at the edges. It does not really tackle the problems that we have.
But all these things go back to electoral reform. If you have proper reform, you have a proper government system, proper structure that people vote who they wanted and what they want. And if you do not perform, they vote you out.
Exactly.
So
you're absolutely correct. And I'm glad you made that point, Sparks. It's a good point to make. It goes back. And somehow you get the sense that the Dominican people do not always see that.
Right.
They don't always see electoral reform and their vote with their state in life, where they are, how things are. A messed up legal system and judicial system, public servants not getting any kind of salary. How can you not give a salary increase over 15 years to your public servants and have people getting the same salary year in, year out when prices are rising continuously? Who treats their workers that way? But people somehow they have a disconnect. They don't seem to make that link between what they do in support of electoral reform and how that could transform their lives. And that's why we are doing what we're doing, because we believe as a party, we have a better way. We've shown it, as the caller said earlier, within 4 years, the kind of evidence that was there, the kind of work that was done, opening up of roads, the building of secondary schools, the Casabru Secondary School, the Grand Bay Secondary School, all of those things that went up within the space of 4 years. That's how government should be working. We've not seen that. And that's why we're making the appeal to the Dominican public to take matters into your own hands and let us get these reforms, let's get this electoral reform, and let us get this government out, because quite frankly, it's becoming a laughing matter. And it's in particular when you have people really in the wrong areas. I mean, Dr. Mack is a good guy. We went to school together, but quite frankly, he's in the wrong area, because I don't know who. And interesting enough, I saw somebody who used to do the budget, who used to write the budget a few years ago. And I'm like, you need to go back, man. Something is wrong. And he was just laughing. I said, you need to go back and help. I mean, they didn't help, because obviously whatever is there is not going to make a difference. And especially now with the fact that the CBI proceeds most likely going to dry out, it's not going to make the difference. And then just to respond to Zed, I mean, Zed said we need to be careful about taxes. As a government, we don't necessarily need to raise taxes. What you need to do, and that's very fundamental to understand, what you need to do is you need to grow the economy. If you grow the economy, your revenues are going to grow with it. So you don't have to impose higher taxes, because you don't want to impose taxes on the very few people that are working. They're the ones who are going to pay the taxes. And if you impose taxes, people are just going to find ways to evade it. So if you impose very high taxes on the port, somebody's going to find a way to bribe a port officer. Somebody's going to find a way to pack things in barrels and disguise it so that they don't pay what they have to pay. So people find ways of evading taxes. So the response is not to raise the taxes. The response is to have more people working, have the economy expanding and growing, and that's where the government will get a lot more resources.
But Doc, you made a point about CBI a while ago, and that is something they have been saying. If not CBI, then what? 60% of our GDP. You have these stringent measures being placed on us by the EU, the US, the UK, because of the CBI program. Some was not wanting to fall apart. I think that is what we have been asking for as a party, United Workers' Party. If something happened right now, what is the what? They say if it's not CBI, then what? What is
see,
the what they're saying? What is the what?
This government has messed up big time.
Yeah.
I will tell you, as late as 2024, and I remember that very clearly because I wrote about it, 2014, 2015. Government was making $25 million, That's the amount they were bringing into the budget from CBI. 2015, $25 million. That's 8 years ago. $25 million. At that time, there was still something of agriculture. There was still something of tourism. There was still a thing, services. So those things, and that is what they've neglected. They got lazy, as the caller said, because when the free money started to flow, they could now pack whatever they want overseas, bring in what they want into the economy of Dominica so that they can have the $1 billion budget. Then they got lazy. So agriculture suddenly became a has-been industry. The tourism sector, it was okay if you as a hotelier, we don't give you financing so that you can have refurbish your hotel. We let the hotel, your investment die because you don't support us, that kind of thing. So when you have all of that happening, then that is where we get to this point now. So that if and when this thing will be in very serious trouble, because all of those other areas that was bringing some growth, bringing some movement in the economy has been killed, and that is where the problem is. So I think,
You're listening to the Workers' Voice in studios with Ms. Dr. Thompson Fountain, an economist by profession and the political leader of the United Workers' Party. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Spags, and good evening to our Honorable Leader. Great exposition tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm listening, and you know what? You just continue to do it. And I'm happy that you raised the last point about, you don't really necessarily have to raise taxes to suck from the people more so that you can get things working. Is if you incentivize the various sectors, then obviously the economy can boost back. But before I start my presentation, a short one, I would like to say that this budget is something I'm going to credit. Is going to Kwedi Carlsren Kwedi Abba budget, sir. It's not like when workers' time where money was making money. This time around, Kwedi is going to double meet Kwedi under that budget that I see. But let me just say, people must not get too excited about the increase for public servants. And the only benefit, the only person who's going to, the only entity that's going to benefit from the increase is the government itself. But anytime you say 6% increase, so someone who, and by the way, that is only for established workers, yeah? And if you don't get excited, you're not going there, you're not established. And a lot of people are not established, you're not going to get that. So the $1,000, you get $60, and I know you all have explained that, but I just joined the program, so I'm sorry if I have to go back over it. So on the top, if one gets a $12,000 from the government, $60 will be put on the side, but it's not 60. Remember, that has to be taxed. You have inland revenue, then you have your social security. So really, you're getting about $40, $45. That's about 35 more massive bread you could buy from Suki. But interestingly, if you want the economy to grow, right? And if you want the economy to grow, why, as we speak, so the rate of inflation is increasing. In fact, some areas in the world already, some geographical areas are experiencing what they call hyperinflation. Where the rate of inflation is so high that it has quadrupled in some areas. So the point is, my friend, if the government wants things to work, then you have the private sector. We always say that is the center, that is for growth. Is a growth sector. So if you wanted that to work, why didn't you just give them a tax break? So that when you give them a tax break, as you give in the liquor increase, so that people can feel the liquor more of their food basket when they go to shop. You have everything living there. Inflation is blazing. What $60 and $1,000 going to do for you when you're already you already own your domlek? Some of us can't even really finish our domlek. Some of us have to go and talk to the internet people to hold us on for a little while. Some of us can't pay the water. So this is just a mess up thing. And my final point I'm going to make, and Doc, I really like you to explore that more as I spoke. I don't want to take the whole program. But the idea is that you have introducing a levy of $5,000 right, to investors, right, that have any private sector development under the CBI. Yet one passport vendor owes you $6.1 million that you're not paying, and you're going for a little meager $5,000 on private sector development of the CBI. I mean, that is a disgraceful thing. It appears that the passport vendors are doing better than the state. Ask the passport vendors must bring the state's money into the treasury. That's where it has to come. How could you be a middleman? How could you be an intermediary and you're making more than the person giving you the thing to sell because you now have passport as a resource? How could I now be vending a country's resource and do better than the country?
If you look at some of these guys that private passport, their private development is bigger than the government. Some of them buy land for millions of dollars. Some of them have investment for over close to $1 billion. So, gentlemen, I just want to say thanks for the education, and I hope Dominicans will know this is a budget that is going to cost Quidi to meet Quidi and not money meeting money. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, caller, for your intervention. You listen to the Workers' Voice. It's now 12 to 10. In studios with me is Dr. Thompson Funk, and we're discussing the budget presented by Dr. Irvin McIntyre on Tuesday. Dr. Fontaine, you heard the caller. He raised some concerns there as well, some points, pertinent points. Time is running out, but you say you're looking at your. We'll take a few more calls. I just wanted you were making some points earlier on in terms of the way forward. What do we do? How do we deal with it? People say they not give our ideas out there, but they cannot use it. We have to let the people know we as a party yes. Our turn at the wicket will be ready to and willing to hit the ball on the ground as we get there, to hit the ball and get going in terms of what do we do to get our country back into the right order. How do we get people back to work? How do we get the economy going? How do we get people, create the enabling environment for foreign direct investment? How do we do that? These things, though.
Yeah, exactly. And that is where the discussion has not been. As we said, this government has grown lazy. And they've grown lazy. It's like somebody who wins a lottery. All of a sudden, they don't want to work again. But before you know, the lottery proceeds have gone. Right. They say that most lottery winners are broke again after 5 years because they go out, they spend everything. They get, they behave recklessly. And that's what we are seeing with this government. Government behaves as someone who has won a lottery. And so they have stopped working. They have stopped thinking. They have stopped doing what is necessary. The central role of the government. And if you notice in this budget, the only thing that they have not touched is the social programs. They say that they're not touching that. Okay, within the Prime Minister's office, the Yes We Care, they have all kinds. They have I didn't know they had all of these bags. Yes We Care. They have there's something about old people, something roving care, help for vulnerable youth, and all of those. They say they're not touching, but that's not really what you need. Those things will take care of itself. What you really need is to put people to work. Fundament at the heart of this issue. So that's where the thinking should be. It should not be too simply, because when you just take money, you give somebody $300 a month. Yeah, that might block a hole. They might be able to afford a couple extra Mastiff, a day or a week, but it does not really make a fundamental difference in the economy, and that is what you want. So the idea that we need to really focus on job creation is, to me, what has to be done, the way forward. How do you harness the tourism industry? I saw a lot in the budget about, sperm whales and protection and so on. These are all good, but how do you gain? So what I was looking for example, is that when they say, okay, we are going to protect those sperm whales, but we think if we can protect the marine environment for the sperm whales, we can provide incentives for local people to organize tours, for example, so we can go see the whales and so on. You can have targeted efforts at those things to make money, to put people to work. And we're not seeing that. And that, to me, is certainly the way forward. How do we create those jobs? And obviously, this government is tired. After 23 years, they must be. After 23 years of learning to hide and dodge, I don't know how it sleeps at night, quite frankly, because there's been 23 years of dodging and trying to hide money in this account, in this other account, to open this company here. A lot of stuff going on, but not in the interest of Dominican. And I think at the end of the day, that is the problem that we have. The people of Dominica, and we should take some of the blame as well. Those of us in Dominica, those of us overseas who come time after time again to put this government in office, we have to take the responsibility. We have to take the blame for the pain, the heartache, the suffering that the Dominican people are going through. And it's a lot of pain spark. There's a lot of headache. It's a lot of frustration. The mental wards are overflowing in Dominica. The mental wards overflowing. The level of individuals who depression, stress, who are going off their heads, going off their minds, because of the strain, the frustrations of living in Dominica. These are real. These are the real consequences of bad government. And these are the real consequences of persons coming from overseas and putting on the backs of Dominicans a government that has not worked in the interest of the people. And that's the other thing that we have, and which is different from no other country has this phenomena, where a diaspora vote determines an election. We're the only country, and look at what we're reaping as a result. Because I can, I'm convinced, Bags, if it was only the people in Dominica allowed to vote, we would not have had this government. This government would have been gone a long time.
Doc, if you have the $7.9 billion returned to Dominica, what are some, give me a couple of the areas you see you put that money into kickstart the economy and get people back to work?
Man, Dominicans like state of the art. We have a state of the art agriculture system, certainly agriculture. You really want to develop that sector for the very simple reason there is so much that you can do with agriculture. You're not only creating food security, which is critical in this day and age, food security, but you're also creating avenues for people to do. And I gave you an example earlier of what I saw in Mao earlier today. Right. It is just the creativity that people have, being able to use agriculture stuff to do other stuff, add value to it. So you want to encourage that. You want to really have jobs created in the marketing area, in research, in sales, all of those other jobs that can be added. So it's not just a question of people, because when people talk about investment in agriculture, they think of the farmer in his bowman taking rain and forming erosion and so on. But that's not what agriculture is. Agriculture is about adding value. It's about creating smart people in suits as well, in air conditioned offices, who will be there doing the planning, doing the marketing, doing the advertising, all of those things that can be done. So you want to put a lot of these resources into the agriculture sector, where you'll probably get the best bang for your buck. You also want to develop the services industry, tourism services, your banking services, your insurance services. You want to be able to, again, make that attractive. Dominica has one of a really good feature. We speak English, and we have a good education system. We have bright people in Dominica, and we have a very good communication internet infrastructure. We can use that into the knowledge industries. That's one thing. You don't see that in the government budget. They're still living in the past, but you really want to harness jobs in that area. I mean, companies go in search of Indians all across the Atlantic Ocean to India. They could just come across not the Pacific, the Pacific Ocean. They can just come across not the Indian Ocean, but just the Atlantic Ocean to us here in Dominica. And before you know it, Dominicans engage in this knowledge industry. They're troubleshooting stuff on the internet. They're building apps. They're doing all of those things. They're into AI, artificial intelligence. All of that you would want to encourage. Okay, so you can put monies into those sectors that can encourage entrepreneurship, encourage people to come in. And you talk about attracting foreign direct investment. That's what you want to do as well. Because a lot of the capital is not necessarily within Dominica, but you just use that $7 billion to create the enabling environment where people can then come in and add to it. And it's not a big population. We can solve Dominica's problem of unemployment. We can solve Dominica's problem of poverty. We can solve Dominica's problem of lack of growth by having the right people in government, by creating the right environment, and also having a government that has the compassion for its people. Okay, now that's one thing I think that's lacking. When you think of, you're trying to do measures and you're focused on the poor people who are already suffering. You're not talking about trying to get from the rich to redistribute that wealth from the rich to the poor, but you're squeezing more out of the poor. To me, that shows a lack of compassion for the people.
Doc, in your discussion since you came in, you have been mentioning about small businesses and empowering them. But over maybe 25 years ago, former Minister of Tourism, Mr. Norris Prevo, spoke of the business incubator in Roseau. And it's the same thing you're talking about, empowering young people, giving them that platform to start. They start off the business, and when they begin to grow, they move out and make room for other people. And that's what Mr. Prevo initiative was speaking about 25 years ago. And now you're having about young business people. I saw a young lady, a hairdresser, crying about the level of import duty she has to pay on products to do here for her clients.
Yeah, I
and
think
to
I
get
saw that. I
yeah,
saw that on the internet.
and it shows that the frustration that young entrepreneurs are having. How do we? And you make some points there in terms of ensuring that to create the enabling environment for them to grow, and the taxes. How do we address the taxation? All things. And I'm happy that you started off with that focusing on the young people, and that is where we have some problem. Around the world, Doc, you have that. I learned that in Taiwan, maybe 1999. I was in Taiwan. They talk about the SMEs. They're the driving force behind every economy, the small to medium term enterprises. And that is what maybe we have to look at as well, in terms of developing and empowering our young people.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of that money has to go into that. Again, it's about creating an environment, and it's not too hard to create jobs. People have the initiative, people have the thinking. I see those beautiful stuff that people are creating, and this lady said, she has to do her research. This lady who does the bees says, I read everything I can about the bees. I want to find out. And a little night, the bees can travel. They travel 5 miles in any direction, but they come back to their hives. Learn everything. You have the initiative. You want to do this. You want to try those different blends. The creativity will come from them. What they really need is the environment where they can do their products. They can get financed, and they can then export. And so that is what you want to do. You want to have a business type of in the US, they have the Small Business Administration that just does that does just that, channel resources towards businesses. Yeah. And at the end of the day, those businesses give back, and then it is then lent to another one,
So like
a revolving fund, that's the kind of thing you want to do. Not just say you give $1.6 million in the whole year to a whole sector. That's not going to have any impact, So really what we need, Spags, is just a government that cares about the people. And this government does not. It is clear. If this government cared about it, in fact, if the government had cared about the Dominican public, that money would not be outside there. We would not be having the conversation about our money being controlled by foreigners in foreign bank accounts, in all orders. We would not be having that conversation. The fact that we can even have that conversation tells us, and I think Dominicans don't get angry enough about this. We don't vent sufficiently about this evil. Really, that's what it is, that the government has created against the people of Dominica, to use our resources, our identity, our passport to make money, and then to have some other foreigner become rich, become multimillionaires and build skyscrapers in Dubai whilst we are here suffering in Dominica. It is just not right. And where is the outrage? Where is the outrage? And then you stifle people's outrage by giving them a few crumbs, $300. The whole is $300 for the month. Mm-hmm. Or I will, if you come to the hospital, I will not charge you a fee. And at the end of the day, you come to the hospital and you probably die anyway. So we need to get that focus, and Dominicans need to focus more on the evil that this government continues to perpetuate against its people. But more importantly, I think we need to address the issue of electoral reform, the issue of getting rid of this government, the issue of really talking to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. We need them to help us. We need the diaspora to help us not to continue to create this situation where they support a government that the people that are in the country do not want. It is not fair. It is not right. They impose a government. It is not fair, and the diaspora people need to understand that. They need to help us with this. So there is so much that needs to be done, Spag. I know our phones are still going crazy.
But let me ask you one question. Some people raise it on my WhatsApp message. They want to ask they asked me to ask Dr. Fountain about the statement made by the Minister of Finance in his budget address about Dominica having the best healthcare system in the Caribbean. They would like to your take on that. It's very serious matter, because
I am laughing, but then it goes to, that's one of the reasons why I call this budget an empty promises and spin, a budget of spin and empty promises, because that's what that is. That is spin.
Right.
When you spin, you take a situation and try to spin it around. Because when you can stand and look a health practitioner, a physician whose motto is do no harm, when they can stand and lie so blatantly to the public. And I say it's a blatant lie because everybody knew immediately. There was nothing else heard in this budget, I can guarantee you, except everybody heard that they have the best health system. They were hearing described to them something that they did not recognize. And you saw the outpouring on social media. Almost in an instant, it was all over the internet. That was all. That was all people were talking about. They cut off that part of the prime minister, of the minister of finance, boasting about a healthcare system the best. And what was more pathetic about this, facts, quite frankly, was the round of applause by those ministers and Labour Party supporters there in Parliament, knowing well, very well, that if they fell sick tonight, they will find a way out of Dominica, knowing full well that they don't want to be caught alive in this hospital. Yet they're clapping. Why are you trying to fool the people? Why are you trying to? And that's what it is. It is really an attempt to fool people and to lie, because people know the reality. Almost every day on the talk shows in Dominica, people are complaining about the health system. They complain about the shortcomings of the hospital. They complain about people, their families dying. They complain about their families getting bed sores. They complain about the lack of empathy by some of the health workers. We are hearing all of those things on a daily basis. And then you come and say, we have the best healthcare that we've ever had. You have a hospital that was built for millions of dollars, shuttered in America, closed down, not been used one day. You say you have 7 operating theaters. You don't need 7 operating theaters.
But yet in none of them you have stitches. Yeah. No oxygen.
7 operating theaters. I mean, that is ridiculous. That is just ridiculous nonsense. To talk about 7 operating theaters, and at the end of the day, nobody can get quality care. What you want is quality care, which we used to have, by the way. I remember a time when people used to come to Dominica for operations. They would leave the United States and come to Dominica for an operation.
Doc, I met 2 individuals who had appointments for surgery at the hospital. One of them even ended up being admitted for surgery, only to find out on the day that they're supposed to get going to the surgery room theater, they were told that they have to go back home to reschedule because they don't have enough equipment or materials in the surgery room. And the Minister of Health is boasting that they have.
Yeah, but these are the kind of stuff that every Dominican knows. And so that's why I said, when people heard that, they could not believe.
You mentioned the young man and his mother had to spend over $18,000.
Yes. So people know the reality. So to try to even camouflage that, to try to be so bold-faced. What got me was the fact that he was so bold-faced about it. It's a bold-faced lie.
As a medical doctor and worked in the industry.
That is sad, but so somehow you get contaminated when you are within this Labour Party. Something about the conduct of the Labour Party, something about, the leadership, the rot that we have at the head. I think that is what ultimately poisons people, because everybody is surprised. Everybody you speak to, because they know Dr. Mack as this friendly, good doctor. Yeah. All of a sudden, he's somebody nobody recognizes him. And the question is why? Why is he doing this? Why is he? I don't know.
Doc, let me just take this final call as we continue to. Hello, good evening, final caller. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yes, good evening. 10-4, my brother.
10-4.
What's going on?
Going on good. Everything is good.
Dr. Fountain, nice to hear that you're on island with the people. But Mr. Sparks, wasn't it that same doctor that was overseas seeking medical attention a year or something ago?
Yes, sir.
That same guy. But yet still, this is what he got to say. But you see, we as a people, we have to stand together as one. And it's about time now, because when it rains, like Lennon said, the brother from Houston, which I love his contribution every time, it falls on all of us house. When the storms is coming, we all feel it. So that storm that's coming right now with the budget, everyone gonna feel it. It's not only gonna be freedom rights, UWPI. Labor rights also gonna be feeling it because they're already not working. There's no job, no employment for them. So we all in it together. So they got to put their political differences aside and come and together to rescue Dominica. Because Dominica is really right now on resuscitation, really in serious problem right now. And we have to put it back, but it only takes the people. And I'm calling on the police officers. Please, Dominicans are not a non-violent people. If they come together for a situation, do not go with guns for this man, Roosevelt carried against your people without ammunition. You can come, you can look, as long as they're not destroying properties, people property. If they're protesting, give them the right to protest for things that's happening in Dominica against a people by this administration. Please protect the people, because the time is coming when you all gonna be at an elderly age and you all be regretting the things that you all do. You all didn't help save Dominica. Anyway, I'm listening, and have a blessed time and get home safe.
Yeah, thank you very much for your contribution, caller. Final. Good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Frank,
Yes, sir.
the attitude I'd like to see of the government is that if there is a market, you give your young people an incentive, a $10,000 prize for the first person who can come up with false eyelashes made from banana fiber. That's the kind of attitude you need. Not telling people that, oh, it's ridiculous. There's a market. You create the product.
Yeah.
You encourage your people to create that product and move forward with it. Enough said.
Thank you very much.
Well said. Well said,
yes.
indeed. Well said.
You encourage creativity. You encourage young people to empower themselves and push them. You know, and Doc, the discussion tonight, we didn't even touch. How many pages we touched, Doc?
I think we had page 3. Right?
It shows that people taking note of what is going on, and more needs to be done in terms of disseminating information, breaking it down for a lot of them. But people understand their pocket, you know what is happening at their own bread and butter issues, and I think that is what really demonstrated tonight. There, on your final thoughts on tonight's discussion and on the way forward.
So we're not taking any more calls, right? I still see the lines.
Okay, if you want to take more calls,
let's take quickly, probably
okay,
tomorrow, and then yeah.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice. Overseas line.
Good evening. Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Not in my microwave the hospital have. If a patient already yet for their food, and the food get cold and they're ready to eat the food later. Not in my microwave they have. They say the microwave spoil, going on how many months, but they say they have money. That's it. They're so liar. It's on fire. Those Labour Party people, they lie, they like to lie. Which health is the best? Which health? And every time a patient come hospital, you have to go and buy medicine. I never know that before. Liar.
Thank you very much, caller. The lights are going. We'll take a few more calls. Doc said you can call in 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097. Overseas number is 305-432-9624, 305-432-9624. I'm getting a few WhatsApp messages as well. There's so many of them coming in, so I was just going through a few of them. Doc said somebody in response to the ATMs not working, and he said, yes, it is happening. I have tried every branch of the National Bank with my Chase debit card with no success. It only worked at the Republic Bank. So people having issues with their coming from overseas and using their cards here at the bank. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Doc. Yeah, and good evening, Mr. Starks John.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to all Dominicans. This guy is an abysmal failure. This budget is an abysmal failure. Scary is a waste of time. Dominicans, put on your boots, stand to it on the streets. My brother, I can't talk no more. All I want to do is act now. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank
you very much for your contribution. A WhatsApp message. I I have to do a surgery for hernia since October 15, 2022. I have paid for my surgery $525 in advance. I went with my gas, plaster, cotton, everything. When I went to the get admitted, up to now, I can't make that surgery. And that is that's the common thing going on, Doc. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Workers' Voice.
Yeah, good night.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, the same doctor that said that the healthcare that is provided in Dominica is on par with any developing country in the world. He was sick and his wife was sick and he was overseas, so I'm really confused.
Yes, we all are callers. Thank you very much for reminding us. Yes, Doc. It's 15 past second. Let me see. Oh, your mic, yes. Come on.
Yes. So yeah, it's been an interesting discussion again. My special thanks. We certainly want to extend our thanks to all of you for taking time, firstly to listen, and secondly to feel sufficiently moved to pick up the phone and call us here at the studio and to share your frustrations, sometimes share your views, and just to give a sense as to what is going on. So we are very thankful for that. I'll use a term. I think this government needs to wheel and come again, because it is clear that they're not ready. They're not ready for leadership of this country. This reset, this national reset, having a cabinet of young people is probably a good thing. But I can tell you, you need the experience. It is not there. The depth is not there. I think more focus is placed on the type of hats that people wear in Parliament, which is a caution. Quite frankly, they need to get rid of this. I don't see that as absolutely no value to the discussion, but so much focus is placed on it. People come and sit pretty and with their hats on the side, and it's just ridiculous. I've never seen anything quite like this. That's really a pappy show thing that should stop, really, and focus on the issues that impact in Dominica. I want to hear from the parliamentarians. I want to hear how they're going to tackle the unemployment problem. I want to hear from my pal rep in Grand Forks how she's going to deal with the scores and scores of young people who have absolutely no opportunities in Grand Forks. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to see your fancy hat in Parliament, and I don't want you clapping at false statements. I want to hear you talk about the issues that impact the everyday lives. And that is what we need to demand of our representatives. It cannot be that people who are supposed to be working in the best interests of the Dominican public continue to betray it all the time. They betray the trust of the people. And that's what is happening. I think the majority of, if not all of these parliamentarians, they have betrayed the trust of the people. Persons who you thought you could look up to, you no longer can do that. Everybody appears to be contaminated. What we really need, Spags, is a change in government. What we really need is electoral reform. It comes back, as you said. Everything takes us back to electoral reform. Everything takes us back to having the real and true will of the Dominican public reflected in the way they vote for their leaders. And that is something that we need to continue to push. We need to continue to pursue. And certainly, the discussion obviously will continue, but I really want to see more focus on tackling the problems that are facing Dominicans, tackling the problem of unemployment, tackling the problem of the poverty. And don't tell me about NEP or social net, safety net. Let's talk about real solutions to tackle this problem, to give people real hope, to create real opportunity. That's what we need. And that's what we do not have at this time. We've not had it for 23 years under this Labour Party government. And the only way we're going to get it, and people should not keep hoping. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, hoping that after 23 years, if they have not been able to, they're not going to change again. You cannot, at a certain point, I understand the snake stops changing its skin. You cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting to have a different result. And that's where we are. And that's what we need to continue to push for us to see real change in Dominica. And the way we do that, Spags, is to have a new government in place. We need a new government. We need new voices. We need new thinking. We need people who genuinely care about Dominica. And the best alternative right now is the United Workers' Party, without a doubt. The best, and not so much the party, but the individuals within the party. You know, with the record, as we said, a record of performance within the 4 years, the people who were there then are still within the party. And we've now have new voices, new inputs. Is the quality of the people that we have within the United Workers' Party that are honest, that can do the work, that know what the country needs, and that is that's who we need in office right now. You know, time for change, man. Time for change.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thompson Fontaine, here for the past 2 hours and 18 minutes. Yes, we have been at it, really looking at the budget that was presented, 2023-2024 budget that was presented by the Minister of Finance, Dr. Irvin McIntyre, and how things could have been done differently, look at it differently in different perspective in terms of ensuring that we move our country forward. And a lot of lapses, I would say, as Dr. Thompson Fontaine said, a lot of loopholes in this budget. It was a Guam movement budget, nothing that really look at no substance, nothing to really empower the country, develop the country, put that energy into our productive sector. Nothing like that happened. So we're hoping that you can continue to listen to us, the United Workers' Party. Dr. Thompson Fontaine is here on island. For now, you can meet him, interact with him, and let us deal with the issues confronting us head on. Some of us say we talk a lot, and some of us talk a lot. And when come to act, we duck. I hope that we'll be standing on the front line very soon. We have to take a stand seriously. As I leave tonight, I just want to thank you for joining us. On behalf of Dr. Thompson Fontaine and the rest of the United Workers' Party, thank you for being with us tonight on the Workers' Voice. See you next week, Thursday, at the same time here at Q95 for the Workers' Voice. God bless you and have a wonderful weekend.
Landscape. It changes drastically. The thing that was really hard is the freedom that you lose in your home, in your intimacy. You lose the trust because everybody, to be able to live and to think that you are the real communist, the real comrade, people just say things that are not true and you end up in jail. So I grew up in a household of free speech, and suddenly you come back from school, you have to look around to see if somebody else is home, if you want to speak to anybody, and to be careful about what you say. It's terrible. And you have to call your mom and dad comrade. You don't do that, just that can get you put in jail. It is amazingly disturbing.
Was there censorship of speech and of music?
Oh yeah, censorship of music.